Objective taken. There are only 2 minutes!
We can do that.
Figured I can edit whatever.
Oh, okay. Sounds good to me.
Oh, you want to have the ability to record? Hang on.
Yeah.
There you go.
That way I can do my little intro here and we can get going. All right. Good evening. I'm joined again by author and podcast host Lamprey Milt. How's it going, Lamprey?
I don't know if you want to call me an author.
Well, we're here to discuss 4 of your articles.
I was going to say occasional blogger.
Typist, Lamprey Milt.
My shitty fucking grammar. Fuck, that last one I posted, Hank Oslo had to cut so much of my spelling errors out. I emailed him this morning. I appreciate you editing my article. My 2 best friends are editors professionally, and they won't even take the time to help me with my articles. Some friends they are. I'm talking to you, expat aftermath. So anyway, yeah, I wrote an article because, well, now I have a little bit of free time since the channel is on a hiatus until the summer. So I figured I'd throw that article up there and see how many eyes view it, see if there's any comments, anybody who wants to talk about it. Surprisingly, it got really good feedback on Twitter. It got 50 likes, and I think Hank posted a few follow-up articles underneath the post, the tweet. So, and that's it. Now that's my final article on Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, Sustainable Development, whatever you want to call it. I am tapped out with that topic.
Yeah, man, I read through these articles as they came out, and then I did a just sort of like a read through earlier today, getting ready for our chat, starting back in 2020 in September with China, real estate, and COVID-19, the naughty word, density intensity, the behavioral sink, and today's post, An Idiot's Guide to Agenda 2030. I think that covered quite a few interesting topics here. You know, and it's funny how almost all of them tie into the different conversations that we've had in different venues over the last couple of months. I'm also sorry to hear about the channel. I was looking forward to that Kevin Michael Grace live stream, and then I went to your channel and everything was missing.
I threw it up on BitChute, and I'll post the KMG chat probably in a couple weeks. And I'm doing a chat with the legendary Steve Haka, probably either Friday or Saturday, and I'll throw that up.
Right on.
And probably next month. And I have a really good lineup when we come back, so we'll be fine. I really do want those 2 strikes to clear, and I do want to take a break from doing the shows because I have not stopped in 4 years. I think I've done maybe a month off here and there, maybe a week, 2 weeks off every now and again, but I never taken a serious hiatus. And Iam's got a lot of books he's got to read. He's got a lot of information he needs to digest. And I got a lot of books sitting on my shelf that I haven't been able to get to as of late because I'm too busy doing chats with people such as yourself.
Yeah, man. I feel that. I have a pile of books that I really need to start actually getting through. Well, man, let's take a look here. I figure since this is a series of articles, we should probably start at the beginning. And,
Okay, very cool.
I'd be down to, yeah, just start here with the China real estate and the naughty word,
The coof.
the coof, the beer bug, the scamdemic.
Hang
There's
on.
something really interesting that you noted early on is talking about the Chinese investment into American real estate. And I know when I was living in California, there were many of what you refer to as shadow inventory,
Yeah.
or the zombie inventory, where according to this article I found in 2018, 71% of foreign purchases in California were from Asia or Oceania. And all of the, let's see what we got here. 40% of all Chinese home purchases are in California. And I know in my neighborhood alone, there were many obviously vacant homes that were purchased by Chinese investment, overseas investment. And I guess that comes down to something you mentioned in the article about most of the real estate in China is leased and is not actually owned by the people who spend the money on it.
It's a long-term lease. They still
Mhm.
call it property ownership. And there's a couple other countries that do. Thailand, for example, is another country that comes to mind where you get a long-term lease for like, I think maybe like 50 years or 99 years, and 9 out of 10 times it gets renewed. One thing, when Chinese investors come over to the United States, they're horrified by the fact that we have annual property tax, because in China, when you first buy a condo, air quote, buy a condo, the property tax is already baked into the purchase price. So when they come to the United States, they're like, oh my God, I have to pay tax every month on this thing or every year. And like, yeah, that's how it works. That's one reason why you don't necessarily see things like ghost cities or vacant properties that sit for an extended period, because we have property tax. So it keeps property fluid, keeps it moving, it keeps changing hands. It doesn't necessarily sit for an extended period, versus like when you go to a third world country, you see a lot of dilapidated properties here and there.
Yeah, that's something that I noticed quite a bit. There was a YouTube channel that I'd watch quite a bit, especially at the beginning of the whole fake pandemic that we were dealing with, where it was like some guys with English accents who rode motorcycles through.
Yes, AVN Channel, I think it's called.
Something like that. He's always wearing a suit, talking about living in China, and
it's a great channel.
It is, and there were a lot of fascinating rides through sort of like the rural communities and abandoned cities, just huge blocks of apartments that are just falling apart. No one's living in them. It's bizarre.
So before we get into the whole China thing, I've been studying Agenda 21 now. It's been about 10 years. And it kind of coincided with my red pilling, was the war in Syria and Agenda 21. I want to say it was either like Alex Jones or Glenn Beck kept going on and on about Agenda 21. And what I was doing at that time as a job was also kind of in the realm of sustainable development. So when I started hearing them talk about these things, and then I started taking a look at some of the documents and stuff that I was doing in my job, I was just blown away, horrified. I remember printing out PDFs, going to my relatives, going on government websites, local villages and towns, learning more and more about the nuances of Agenda 21. And to my horror, it was all true. I couldn't believe, like, wow, this is actually fact. This is actually happening. And it basically fell on deaf ears. A lot of people are telling me that there would be too much corruption at the ground level, that you can never really initiate things like this. And we can talk a little bit about that as we get into the articles. It's full-blown communism, the United States or the Constitution, so on and so forth. These typical GOP constitution can't happen, won't happen, never will happen. And now fast forward, so many of my friends and relatives were like, oh my God, Nick, you were right the entire time. This is actually happening. This is real. They're building all these little downtown communities. They're pushing sodomite on a bike, as Ian likes to call it.
Yeah.
And, it overlaps with one another. A lot of these things tend to overlap with one another, and that's why you kind of get lost in the rabbit hole on Agenda 2030, Agenda 21. Agenda 21, Agenda 2030 are the same thing. Sustainable development, smart growth, all in the same thing. And it's all encompassing. I like to focus on the real estate side of things, and obviously the sociology aspect of it also, doing these doing the MGTOW chats. But really, I would definitely consider myself somewhat of an expert when it comes to sustainable development, how the real estate developers are involved in this, the various tax breaks, the zoning and codes and things to watch out for, so on and so forth.
Yeah, man.
So those 4 articles are basically a bird's eye view and a good template for the average normie or person who wants to understand what Agenda 21 actually is. I mean, I could have wrote a book on this subject, but a lot of other people have covered these topics to one degree or another. I highly recommend Joel Kotkin. He's probably the leading intellectual on sustainable development and Agenda 21. He doesn't actually call it that, but he kind of dances around the topic and leaves the door wide open for you to gain this knowledge and for you to digest it. He just leaves the door open. He's got a great book called what is it? Hang on one sec. Let me get the book. I have it right here. I got done reading it like a year ago. It is called The Human City, Urbanism for the Rest of Us. He wrote that book about 3 or 4 years ago, right before the scamdemic, and he's done a follow-up book called Neo-Feudalism, which coincides with a lot of other writings that he has done, other books. The other thing you guys can check out, and YouTube has buried it, but it's still on YouTube. Type in John Anthony, Agenda 21 Explained. The video is well over 10 years old, and he gives you a great synopsis on how Agenda 21 wound up in America. And a lot of this article that I had written April 20th, I somewhat parroted a lot of things that he had mentioned in his presentation that's online. I think it's got like 700,000 views now. And I know when I first watched it 10 years ago, it only had like 20,000. So obviously a lot of people have caught on to it. And back then, it was the only people that were talking about it were the Tea Party people. So when a bunch of these Tea Party these various, I guess, cliques and groups, Tea Party groups, started to divulge this information, they kind of got written off as conspiracy theorists, John Birchers, you name it. They were just labeled as a bunch of wackadoodles. And now, 10 years later, you can see that a lot of these people were correct about what they had to say and basically where we were going as a society. And with COVID, it's accelerated and exasperated a lot of the various kind of these bodies, these organs to the body of neoliberalism. It's forced a lot of those things forward.
Yeah, it sure has. You see it everywhere, especially when it comes to the artificial real estate market, just across the board.
Well, it's global.
Yeah,
that's the thing, and we could talk a little bit about how Agenda 20 works in other nations, and I've kind of glanced over that. Now, when I learned about the ghost cities, tying this back into my first article, and why I had mentioned China, probably about when I first started learning about the ghost cities of China, what I initially thought was this was a way of pulling the people off the rural lands and shoving them into these high rises, but a lot of these high rises are empty. And now with Xi Jinping, and some people will not necessarily agree with me, he's somewhat backtracked off a lot of these ideas. So a lot of these properties are sitting vacant. He's not the Chinese Communist Party and Xi Jinping are not necessarily that inclined about throwing people off these agricultural cooperatives as they once were. And you can see now there's a lot of rhetoric towards the hatred of China. And as I had mentioned towards the tail end of that article, and I'm going to, because I don't necessarily know, maybe we can talk a little bit about it right now, is basically who's screwing who, who's zooming who. The only thing that still baffles me is the question of who ultimately stands to gain from this transformation, air quote, the real estate transformation. Will the U.S. eventually extrapolate China of its wealth and deplete it of its best and brightest via brain draining through the impositions of open borders, allowing fresh cash and bodies to flow into the United States? Or conversely, is China colonizing the United States by flirting with such think tanks, solicitors, and taking advantage of blatant loopholes to buying American from underneath it? Is the saber rattling rhetoric from POTUS, that's Trump, meant to promote a decoupling of, or is it to punish China for not integrating further with the neoliberal order? The situation has become quite fluid, and it's now comical to see urban planners turn schizophrenic attempting to promote social distancing edicts while stacking and packing people, as many as possible, into cities. Yeah, so I'm a little bit confused as far as where does China stand in the Great Transformation, the Great Reset. The Go Cities aspect of things, I mean, this article, I really got lost in the weeds on. It doesn't necessarily have to do with Agenda 21. As I stated before, I always was under the notion that perhaps the idea was to pull a lot of these rural folk and stacking and packing them. But again, the Communist Chinese Party and a lot of the Xi Jinping thought doesn't necessarily bode well with them.
Okay. Well, where do you think that we should start about this conversation then? Where do you think that would be a good beginning for you to go over the?
Well, I'll tell you what. Tell me, what do you think of Agenda 21? What do you know about it, and we can kind of just start snowballing it from there.
Well, I know most about it in the context of the 2030 of Agenda 2030.
Same shit.
Yeah.
So again, Agenda 2030 is Agenda 21. It's just they just keep moving the goalposts further and further out because a lot of the benchmarks aren't reached by a certain time frame. So originally, it was Agenda 21 started with the Rio de Janeiro conference in 1992. It has its origins predating that. It's just that the Agenda 21 as we know it started during the Rio de Janeiro conference in 1992. It started moving across the United States. Again, we can get into that. Then the first benchmark was 2002, then 2012, and now it's moved out to 2030.
Mm-hmm. Where you'll own nothing and be happy.
Bingo.
There you go. Yeah. And we can see after, this whole pandemic, like you're saying, has accelerated a lot of the movement towards it with the rising cost of houses, inflation, the laptop class, people working remotely. One of the articles here, you noted that poor and middle class people are confined to urban and suburban areas that are, becoming almost inseparable now, whereas the wealthy have purchased farmhouses and farmland well outside of the city because they have the resources to make sure they have food and they can take helicopter rides to get to and from where they need to go. You also mentioned Long Island City as an example of
the archipelago.
What's that?
It's an archipelago for the ruling class.
Yes, like most of the manufacturing and everything has been taken out of the area and been gutted, and then this Taco Bell infrastructure has taken over. with overpriced apartments,
Gentrification is
gentrification.
gentrification is also part of Agenda 21.
Mhm. Yeah, apartments with no room for families. Um, the
No
increase in
balconies, key fob entries. This is part of the smart city.
yeah
This is all tied in with smart growth.
yeah I know down in Phoenix, Arizona, they have a smart city going up. It's like it's a big deal right outside of Phoenix. There's a suburb that's going to be total smart city. Everything is going to have uh, logins with your cell phone, key fobs, like you were saying. It's going to be, they're going to try to make it all self-contained.
Why do you think it was so important for everyone to get a smartphone? What do you think the Obama phone was about?
Yep.
Right.
Well,
So
and you even mentioned what we can't even take the batteries out of the damn things anymore.
that's
And
from
that
Tom, actually. Tom made that point.
hmm.
You know, I think I haven't had a phone that I was able to take the battery out in maybe like 4 or 5 years. And any smartphone you get now, the battery's embedded into the phone. So even if you turn it off, is it really turned off? I
Yeah.
remember back in high school, this is going back, 15 years, I used to joke with my friends, like we used to think there was like some secret battery in the phone despite taking the actual battery out. Like, no, man, there's probably a battery in there that keeps the phone on tracking you. And it's conspiratorial and tinfoil hattish as it sounds, for a bunch of fucking pot smoking high school derelicts. We weren't that far off with our with our tinfoil hat conspiracy.
Yeah, I remember seeing a video a long time ago of Mark Zuckerberg, and he had a piece of tape over the webcam on his laptop, and it just struck me as, well, if the guy who runs Facebook has a piece of tape over his laptop, what does he know that I don't? And then I became extremely skeptical of all of these things just from putting that together.
It's weird with Zuckerberg because I feel like he's the type of guy that looks like he has so much to say but can't say it. He always looks like
Yeah,
he's having an anxiety attack when he's
yeah,
talking to you.
extremely uncomfortable.
Very
It's just
uncomfortable.
so uncomfortable.
It makes you wonder how much pull and play does he actually have. And I think again, Tom had mentioned that Facebook's origins are in something called what the fuck was what the hell is Facebook's real name back in 03? Son of a bitch, just slipped my mind. Anywho, it'll come back to me.
I don't know, but I do believe, yeah, that Facebook's origins are tied to the CIA, I believe. DARPA, yeah.
DARPA Facebook. Here we go. Let's see if it. Give me one moment. I want to. DARPA Facebook. LifeLog.
LifeLog.
Yeah. So Facebook's original name was LifeLog, and that was back in 02 and 03. DARPA started that. They shut it down, and then Facebook came out, I think, a year later. Just a couple guys in their college dorm starting this.
Yeah, just like Bill Gates was just a guy in a garage, started up a computer company.
Yeah, well, a lot of these people get have heavily subsidized. I don't necessarily know if that's the case with Facebook and Microsoft. I think Microsoft just kind of steamrolled the competition, started buying everyone out. Obviously, with Tesla, they're just heavily subsidized.
Well, yeah, it wasn't Gates. Gates was already a millionaire when he dropped out of Yale, and his family is all tied in with Planned Parenthood and everything. So he had tons of money and connections before he started Microsoft.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, with the real estate developer side of things, a lot of them just start gobbled up. Massive expansion with hedge funds, where they start buying up single family homes. Obviously with BlackRock and Blackstone, those two obviously come to mind, where they kind of just start, again, asset management. Now property is looked as an asset, not necessarily something for you to live in. I mean, housing is so crucial to society that we've somewhat taken it for granted. And you look back at like the history of the 30-year mortgage, where the origins of that started was during the Great Depression. You know, you can borrow 30 years into the future. That's like unheard of, but banks gave incentives to people that were kind of shit out of luck, lost their homes, not lost their homes, but obviously insolvent. So they rolled out the 30-year mortgage, and now we're just stuck with a 30-year mortgage now going on 100 years. I mean, obviously, if you were to remove the idea of a 30-year mortgage and made it like a 10-year mortgage, property values would plummet because not many people have the cash flow to go out and buy a home for cash, you know?
Yeah. And what do you think about people talking about the mortgages being shifted to 40 and 50-year loans? I've heard some rumblings about that.
Yeah, I don't know too much about that. Again, it's the wrong direction. You see it with car loans now, where you can get, you know, a 10-year car loan. You know, you're again, you will own nothing and be happy. You're on a long-term lease. A lot of these things, which is similar to what China has, where you have a 99-year lease.
Right. Right.
There are some caveats to this, and I've spoken to a lot of real estate brokers about sustainable development and Agenda 21 and these corporations, these hedge funds, these REITs buying up property. Is that you have to realize that a bank makes more money on mortgaging these properties out versus owning them outright. Why do I say that? One is, yeah, they still own the property from underneath you with the loan, but at the same time, they're not necessarily having to fix anything in their home. You got to do all that work versus if they were to own that property, they have to maintain the dwelling. So that's something. And this is something I'm toying with now. Is like, well, let me look at this from another angle. Is it really profitable for these corporations, these hedge funds, these mom and pop, LLC business, like buying them? Like, is it really worth it for them? And again, I'm still toying with this idea. I don't know enough about it, and I just know back in the 70s and 80s that a lot of these landlords were liquidating their properties. Like, they were just giving them away. I know illegal aliens back in the 80s were the landlords, their assistants would go to the person renting the property saying, yo, here's the title, here's the deed, here's the keys, all yours, man. Just sign here and you got it for like $20K. And they're like, oh shit, really? Fuck, I don't have to do any paperwork. That's how a lot of people in New York gained their properties in like the mid 70s to up into like the late 80s, early 90s, is that landlords were just broke. The asset was worthless. And they were like, I just need to get out from underneath it. That's how the housing cooperative came into existence in New York City. 80% of all the housing stock in New York City is not rentals. It's not private property. It's housing cooperatives. How did the housing cooperative come into existence? Well, the building sponsor, the landlord, was insolvent. He still wanted to retain some type of, authority as far as the, which way the building was going with financially. So he would still maintain a control of the board to some limited aspect, or was the majority stakeholder in that building. But at the same time, he kind of wanted to get away from it because it was a shitty asset to hold at that time.
Gotcha.
So that's a little bit of the history of like a housing cooperative. I think they're in California, in the northwest, Seattle, but the overwhelming majority of housing cooperatives happen to be in kind of like the New York City area.
And where are those now? Are those still active, or are people getting out of those?
Like I said, 80% of New York City housing stock is housing cooperatives. And that's a kind of a nice, I am very pro housing cooperative because it kind of forces people to work together. And, you got to start critical thinking on how you're going to keep the shares to your property up. You're not you don't own the property, you're a shareholder. So let's say you have a 3-bedroom, you have X amount of shares. The studio apartment has less shares than that. So the more shares you have in the building, the more pull you have in what direction that building's going to go in. Like, electing a condominium board, co-op board, figuring out basically what direction, where you want to do a capital improvement and things like that. And it's really difficult for a housing cooperative to be converted over to a condominium where you are actually the unit owner. You're not a shareholder. It's complicated. A lot of first-time home buyers think when they buy into a cooperative, they're buying into a condominium. That's not necessarily the case. That's more of a real estate thing. Now, as far as where cooperatives stand during the Great Reset, they're making it harder and harder for cooperatives to function with a lot of these climate change policies. Like you have to have LED lighting, you have to have solar panels, asbestos removal, backflow preventers, all these type of things that the city is kind of bludgeoning these housing cooperatives and condominiums and landlords, and again, any type of dwelling to function, just with this overburdening of this like the state apparatus, just again piling more and more regulations on top of them. I know New York City is rolling out some really crazy benchmarks as far as like elevator safety mechanisms and facade reports, making sure that every brick is not loose and shit like that,
Yeah, basically just stacking on regulations and making it less and less profitable for people who own it, and then making it more expensive for the people who have to rent it.
Right. And, not every housing cooperative or condominium or HOA for that matter is 100 units, 100 houses, 100 homeowners. Okay, so when you have, let's say, 100 homeowners and something, you get some type of violation, or you need to do some type of improvement like an elevator or some type of whatever, something that's going to cost people a lot of money. You have a bigger pool of money to dip into. Versus, let's say there's 20 houses and you have to make an improvement, some type of drainage project, right? So, if there's 20 homeowners and the project costs $250,000, that's a bigger burden on the unit count versus 100 unit, 200, 300, 400, 500, where there's a lot more, again, there's a bigger pool of money to go around. There's less bitching and moaning from those people. So a lot of these smaller unit owners, smaller HOAs, smaller condominiums, smaller cooperatives, single family homes, they don't necessarily have the funds to take care of these various projects, or to pay off some type of violation or file a permit and things like that. So what do? On the back end, things like Agenda 21 will incentivize you to like sell your air rights. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Let's say there's a rental building that's only mid-tier size, 3 or 6 stories high, and the building next door is a skyscraper. Well, that skyscraper that's under development can go to the people next door and say, listen, I want to buy your air rights because I want to keep going higher. And because that smaller building or that single family home is being hurt financially because of other regulatory problems that they're hit with, they're more likely to sell their air rights, which causes more of this densification of a city area, or like a mid-size second-tier suburb or city.
Wow, I never considered that.
That's where you get if you notice, like in places like New York City, they've got these needles going up. They're called needles, like super thin skyscrapers that are being erected all across the United States. In New York City. And the reason why that is happening is because the selling of air rights from the building next door, or whatever, the factory next door, whatever it is.
That's crazy.
The improvement in construction materials has given the rise of things like these needles that are poking up in a lot of in a lot of cities. Again, I don't necessarily know what's going on in Chicago, San Francisco, and other major cities, but it's more than likely happening there too.
Yeah, I imagine so. Though I'm not sure about San Francisco. San Francisco makes it extremely hard to build anything. I know when I was living there, you know, real estate and just land itself was at such a premium, like it was running out because of the natural geography of the area really prevented a lot of building, as well as all of the regulation codes and everything that goes into doing anything in California. Like it's just earthquake this and natural disaster that, and like all of these different things that go in that really limit the size and scale of buildings. And you can only have so many floors, you can only have so many units, it keeps everything like 2 or 3 stories for the most part outside of the major city. Something that you were talking about too in this real estate vein, since we're on it, the brownstones turned into multi-unit rentals. That reminded me a lot of another thing that was going on in the Bay, the hacker house, where people would own a home, slice it up into a bunch of little bunk rooms, and then rent each one out for basically the cost of what a 1-bedroom would be in a normal situation. And it seems like they're all kind of related. You're either building vertically and in some kind of a co-op or in some kind of a HOA or something, or you're getting nickel and dimed by someone buying something that exists as a standalone and slicing it up and trying to get the most out of it from the individuals who are looking for a place to live.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't know enough about California, but you can use California's template as a weather vane for what's happening across the rest of the United States. 100%. A lot of the problems that we're seeing now stem from corruption at the highest level. In the past, it was usually corruption at the lowest level, but now with COVID and the consolidation of wealth and power, you're getting corruption at the top, because they have the power of the state to leverage over, I guess you want to say mom and pop. I don't really like using that term because it sounds very antiquated, but you kind of get the idea. And obviously, the biggest leverage that the state has over property owners is taxes. And with inflation, what's going to go up? It's going to be your taxes. Oh, we've done an assessment. Your house is now worth $800,000. When your property tax is going to be $20,000 annually. Wait a second. But I bought this home in 1980 something for $50,000. Who's to say it's worth $800,000? Well, it's everyone else buying property around your home that's dictating the market force at this point, which pulls up your property value. And there was a huge,
That's fascinating.
It was a huge outcry in Nassau County. My listeners know I'm from Long Island, as you can tell by my voice. You know what I mean? Back in the day,
I'm from Long Island too. Nassau County.
Yeah, Nassau fucking County. You know what I mean? Long Island, just to give people an idea on what Long Island's about. It is Nassau and Suffolk County are the 2 wealthiest counties, second and third behind Simi Valley in the United States per household wealth. So per household wealth, Nassau County and Suffolk County are runner-ups to Simi Valley, which is where the techno oligarchs reside. So that just gives you an idea on the amount of money Long Island has, and a lot of that's been built up since time immemorial. I mean, you stretch.
Yeah, I mean the money goes back, like Suffolk County, like Montauk and the Hamptons, and like all those really nice towns along the water. Like when I was growing up, we were the poorest people in the neighborhood. Like you'd go down the street and you'd see some like old money like mansions. It was unreal. I remember I walked inside one of my friend's houses in high school, and I was hit with like such class shock. I was just like, damn, you are loaded. Like I just didn't even know what from like a regular middle class house, it's like dirty all the time. Like you look back at old 80s movies, right? And there was like a real what they really did well, especially in like E.T. or anything by Spielberg. um they had like, they got class pretty accurate, where like the kitchen table's got like newspaper and stuff on it, the kids haven't been picked up after, it's just like a regular home. Well, you go into some of these houses, and they have cleaning staff, because the whole house is like furnished, and paintings, and you know uh like legit libraries. Like, it looked like you walk into a period piece or something. It was a crazy place.
Yeah, you guys can check out Tim Dillon. He talks a lot about the wild nature of Long Island. He grew up in Island Park, which is a total Irish white trash neighborhood that I think is still affordable despite everything that's going on. I remember, I was trying to move back to a town nearby Island Park, right next to it, before I left New York. And my family was like, "Oh, well, if you can't live there, you can always buy a home in Island Park." I'm like, "Fuck no, I'm not living in Island Park." Digressing, when Hurricane Sandy hit, and I was driving through Island Park, there was like boats in the road. I was like, "What the fuck?" Is a refrigerator open? Like, it just got decimated during Hurricane Sandy, and that's one reason why it was always affordable, because it was so low to the fucking water. And it literally was.
Yeah.
It's an island. It's Island Park. It's an island between mainland Long Island and a city called Long Beach. And it's funny because Long Beach is the biggest, it's the only city outside of New York City on Long Island. And now they plan on building the first skyscraper outside of the 5 boroughs in Long Beach, despite the amount of pushback from property owners and single family home and residents saying, "We don't want this, we don't want this." And right in the middle of COVID, they slipped it right through when everyone wasn't paying attention. Everyone's cowering inside their house with wearing 3 masks and double jabbed. So, COVID was able to push a lot of things through while people were distracted across the United States.
Yes.
Obviously.
Yes. It does seem like it was a giant distraction to get everybody out of these business centers, free up a ton of real estate, free up a ton of opportunity, get people accustomed to living and working out of their homes without getting the benefits of living and working out of your home, like from a tax perspective. I know if you are an independent contractor of some kind, you get tax breaks on your square footage, you get tax breaks on your internet, things that go towards your business. But if you're still working for some company, you just happen to be in your room or in your living room, you're not getting any assistance at all. You're actually, hurting, because you have to provide all of the, internet power and all of these things with no recourse from or no benefits, really. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's I think Christopher Lash calls it the diminishing of expectations. So you meet your doctor via Zoom. Well, how are you supposed to check my blood pressure over a fucking Zoom call, man? Like, don't you want to see what I look like? It's like,
right.
So you're still paying for the same service, but the service is not nearly as good.
Yeah, and I think that there was a time in there that people were actually really enjoying it and not noticing the rising costs of things. But now I know most of the bug people who I am acquainted with are starting to finally notice things like the DoorDash bill is starting to get absurd. The groceries, the grocery delivery, so you don't have to go risk germs or what have you, is starting to get absurd. The I guess time where you had sort of a benefit if you were making a decent living and also being remote for COVID, where you didn't really notice the changes. It's all starting to become a bit more reality now to these people. I don't think it'll change their mind about anything. They're still, plugged into the matrix, but at least they're noticing. I noticed very long time ago, at least 6 months, I stopped ordering food just in general because the bill was starting to get absurd. And
Right.
nowadays, like I can only imagine, I went down the street for a burrito and chips the other day and it was $22. And I didn't even order for delivery. I just walked down to the shop. $22 for a burrito. It was a good burrito, but $22.
Is it $22?
It was not a $22 burrito. No.
No, it wasn't. It's weird. Even like Chinese food, which used to be like the cheapest of all fast foods to buy, is now, it's like a delicacy.
Yeah. With the costs of everything going up, these even regular, like you said, mom and pop's a bit antiquated, but in my area, there's still a lot of like family owned businesses and they've all had to increase their costs across the board if they can, and if they could get employees as well, which is seems to be still a challenge.
Yeah, there's a lot of jobs out there, no doubt about it. I'm talking to Steve Haka. I don't know if you follow Steve Haka at all, but he's got his followers are. He's got a rabid following. He's the most requested guest of mine out of anyone, which is bizarre. And I always joke with Steve, I'm like, Steve, why are you so popular, man? So I've been talking to Steve on the side after a while, after a hiatus of me and him not talking. He called me out of the blue and apologized for not getting back to me. So, and he wants to do a show about exactly what you're talking about, is that you have no skilled labor. Why is that? Well, the boomers didn't teach their children or their next of kin or their neighbors on how to do something because they didn't want to have the expense and subsidizing someone to train for the future growth of their small business or even a corporation. So it's all coming to a head now because the boomers are checking out of the workforce. And now you have a bunch of guys who are under 40 and women for that matter that are unqualified and unskilled. And they just, eat a Hot Pocket and play video games all day long. And they don't have a motivation to learn anything because everything is exorbitantly expensive.
Yeah, and with the whole scamdemic going through, a lot of people who were on that cusp of retirement just decided to go for it. They just, retired or started a small business or
right. Their mortgages are like $1,000. They have their 401k, their Roth IRA, Social Security, pensions, what have you. What is it? What's in it for them to really, to stay in the workforce at this juncture? If anything, they'll take up a part-time job and undercut and undermine the labor force that is trying to strive and trying to save up. So let's say you have a boomer, 65 years old, wants to do a part-time gig. They're more than willing to do it for a mediocre salary because they just want to keep busy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was talking to a gentleman at a restaurant today when I was waiting for lunch, and he was telling me how his 18-year-old son is going into a trade. And I was really enjoying the conversation because he basically was saying, he had some good old school wisdom where he was like, these young people, they're worried about being happy. They're worried about following their dreams and all these goofy things. It's like, you need to get a job that pays well, that, you need to get a skill that people want, that's in demand so that you can get real money. You need to be useful so you get paid and then worry about being happy later, And I was like, this is really refreshing to hear somebody say, because this guy couldn't have been 10 years older than me, late 40s, early 50s with an 18-year-old kid. And that's great that's great information to be telling a kid, especially in the Zoomer generation, where everything's about your feelings and what the hell you identify as. And if you're going to use a litter box instead of a bathroom or something, like some real wisdom, like get something that's valuable, be able to do something valuable so that you will actually get paid, and not just get a job blogging or answering emails or fixing up a spreadsheet.
I'm looking back at what I was going through in my early 20s, and I was in a constant state of panic and anxiety. Maybe that's because of the weed smoking. It's hard for me to, in hindsight, it's hard for me to really think about it. But I just remember what I was going through, just working a dead-end job, going to a trade school, taking up that trade, working one place 1 month, and another job 6 months, seasonal layoff, stuff like that. And I could never really get the ball rolling because a lot of these business owners didn't want to take the time or have the energy because they're running a business. I understand that they're trying to move their business along. They don't necessarily have the patience or the will to really sit down and show you the ropes on how to troubleshoot a car engine or the how to skim coat a fucking sheetrock wall. I totally understand where they were coming from 20 years ago. But now if you're a 20-year-old, you're catatonic. Like you just can't even function because the interpersonal communication with the other is very it's very rocky. It's not steady. So you don't necessarily know how to communicate with the other on how you feel, and you have to take this pull yourself up by the bootstraps mentality, which is really you can't do it anymore. I'm sorry, reality's got to
Yeah. I know a bunch of guys in their early 20s and they all live with their parents, and I don't dog on them because where else are they going to live? Like, how is some 23-year-old guy who doesn't have a career, essentially, who's still kind of like figuring things out and trying to get things rolling? How are you going to afford a $1,500 a month apartment? That's impossible. That's not happening. You're going to be living with roommates, or you're going to be living with your folks. And if you're living with your folks, just save your money and start pushing it towards something that you can build up into something. And I can only imagine how tough that is nowadays with the state of everything.
Well, what do you wind up doing? And I alluded this into that article. You have a brownstone. Wei Feng from Shaodong bought the brownstone, $1.52 million. And you start partitioning the brownstone out. So, you put like 5 bathrooms in it instead of 2. You turn a 4-bedroom into an 8-bedroom, and you start doing things like that. Then I think on my Carl Denninger upload at the beginning, there were these young people renting out a mansion in Midtown Manhattan, and it housed 16 people.
Yes, I remember seeing that.
Right. So that's kind of what's happening. And obviously you're an impressionable 20-something-year-old. You want to live that life, that hustle lifestyle. You're aspiring to be part of the laptop class, let us say.
Yeah.
You want to be around beautiful women. You want to just do takeout and, wake up not knowing where you are at 4 a.m., and have a story to tell the next day to your boys. Like, I get it. Upload an Instagram, shit like that. But that's fun when you're 25. It's not necessarily fun when you're 35. So when you're 35, you kind of, your bed's looking more and more nice. Yeah, I want to, cook something and go to sleep and start my day early. Adulting, basically. You want to adult.
Right.
You want
to be an adult.
Shit. Right.
Unfortunately, in these days, that mentality is happening to people older and older, where, you're trying to extend your adolescence into your early 30s as long as possible, and not wanting to give up those types of lifestyles where, maybe our parents' generation, but surely their parents' generation would have been married and had a kid or two by then. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. Steve Hawker just texted me something about baby boomers. He sent me an article. Just want to see what the hell he sent me here. Classic baby boomers. Oh well, the article's not loading. Anywho, so I think the important thing though, I really want to stress this point that a lot of things with Agenda 2030 overlap with one another. But the crux of it is the climate change agenda and the transformation of real estate. There's a lot of other appendages that are included into Agenda 21, like women's empowerment, social governance. The word governance doesn't mean government. It means stakeholders in that society, which is meant for real estate developers, not-for-profits, basically any type of how do I say, any important aspect of a town or city is considered a stakeholder, and individuals that wield a lot of power within that town and village. So it's not necessarily government where, you as a simpleton, where everyone's equal. Even if I'm a homeless person, I have a say in what's going to happen. They offset the responsibilities of the citizen, the plebes, the denizens, to a stakeholder, which could be a hospital, a hedge fund, a local real estate developer, a non-for-profit, an NGO. These are considered stakeholders. So when you start looking up Agenda 2030, you'll start seeing this term stakeholder a lot in governance, social governance. Some other parts of Agenda 21 is healthcare. Again, I mentioned women's empowerment. That's an important one. LGBT rights. Even things like fishing, for example, like, the idea of catch and release. You can't have a fish under a certain size. These are all type of things and various appendages to Agenda 21. But the crux of Agenda 21 is climate change and real estate, because anything you do, any way you interact with the environment, there's no way around it. You have to interact with the environment, but they're putting all these things in place to make sure what you do with the environment has some type of ramification to it.
Mm-hmm. Like this whole push for electric vehicles and this sort of thing.
Yeah, let me go back to the article I had just written. Hold on, give me 1 second. I wrote, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize that everything we do impacts the environment. This is a grand ambition to manage people's interactions with the environment. Now, the first page of Agenda 21 states, Agenda 21 is a comprehensive plan of action to be taken globally, nationally, and locally by organizations of the United Nations system, governments, and major groups in every area in which human impacts on the environment.
Yeah, it just seems like it's across the board. They're trying to manage the shape of our decline.
It manages your interaction with the environment, period.
Right.
Which
manage the interaction with.
Yeah, go on.
Well, I'm just saying, like, manage the interaction with the environment, manage your interactions with other people, manages how relationships happen, manages who you interact with, who you're allowed to interact with. Where you're allowed to live, how you're allowed to live, like down to the micromanagement of every aspect of your life, so that you don't want to leave your house and go out, and you have no power to change anything around you, even if you did leave. Like, the governance of your town or local community is completely outsourced to, like you were saying, these NGOs, these third parties.
Yeah, right. And the third party is usually this thing called a stakeholder.
Right, the stakeholder, the governance stakeholder.
The governance stakeholder. For a good example is, before the scamdemic, I remember going to some town hall meetings where they started talking about the revitalization of your downtown. Okay, and that's kind of like the camel underneath the tent, nose underneath the tent, the camel's nose underneath the tent, sorry, where they were talking about what's important to everyone here. You're all stakeholders. What's important? And everybody said we need more parking. Oh, you all want new parking. Well, I got bad news for you. We're actually going to reduce parking. Everyone's like, what? We just said we want more parking. Why are you reducing parking? And then obviously they start putting glitter on this turd on why reducing parking is a good idea. Well, what are you trying to do? You're trying to get people out of their vehicles. You want them to be a sodomite on a bike. Right? They don't want you having a vehicle because that's some type of independence, some autonomy. Gas-powered vehicle gives you some autonomy because it's a combustible engine. If you're using a Tesla, you don't necessarily have that autonomy anymore.
Right. There are huge areas of this country that you would just not even be able to traverse with an electric vehicle. You wouldn't even be able to get halfway across some of these states on a single charge.
That's correct.
Yeah, man. It's unreal. But you can have you can go downtown and have your gay bar, and you can have your Pilates studio and your coffee.
And you could do heroin.
Oh, even better. Why not all four?
It's funny because a lot of these bike sharing programs in New York City, people are just stealing the bikes now.
Yeah.
So it's all contradictory. It's all schizophrenic, and it's purposely done. I alluded in one of the articles how a lot of this doesn't make sense, and I'm thinking that the powers that being the ruling class, they're just so, I think Z-Man calls them the cloud people, where they all just talk amongst themselves about how wonderful trannies are, but they're not engaging the hoi polloi and asking, what the hell do you think about all this shit?
Yeah, they know better than us.
So they all live in their own, like a lot of these people, like the Hamptons, for example, the people in the Hamptons don't interact with the Hispanic Guatemalan down the road who's putting it in their toilet, right? Like, they're not talking to them about trannies and fucking gluten-free fucking waffles. Like, it's like, well, what's the game plan here? Like, so eventually the system is going to break or collapse one way or another, or we just descend into this neo-feudalistic lifestyle.
Those bike share programs in every city that I have lived in, I see more of those things like in ditches on the sides of the road or in rivers and just stolen and destroyed than people actually using them. It's unreal.
Right, and you can see like on those, the bike sharing program. It doesn't have like property of the United States government on it, or New York's property in New York City. It's Chase Bank. It's I think Chase and Bank of America have like the words Bank of America written on the side of it or something like that. So you see that it's fascism, where you're having a corporate entity sponsor something for the United States government. It's not actually the United States government promoting these type of things.
Right. Like going back to the textbook definition or Mussolini's definition of fascism, I suppose, which was the state and the corporate interest combining.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
And then you have to realize that again, there's more appendages towards to Agenda 2030, Agenda 21, whatever you want to call it. Food production. You saw a few years ago how I think the UN said that pork is now a carcinogen and promotes cancer. Well, wait a second. More than half the globe eats pork. What do you mean pork is bad for us now? We can't eat pork. You always see this attack on hot dogs and, things that have a high nitrate count, like dried sausages and stuff like that. So then you have where you're attacking cattle and beef because of methane, even with chicken, where they're in cages, they're in these coops where they're, I guess like in little pens, and they're shitting on top of each other, how bad that is for the chicken. The chicken should have rights. You talk about Mount Everest and the amount of trash on Mount Everest because of unsustainable tourism. That's another term you guys can look up, sustainable tourism. So you see this word sustainable thrown around towards anything and everything. And again, people can really get lost in the weeds on this. And that's why I kind of want to lay all these things out in some in my articles to try to give people a good, clear, truncated idea on what is happening and what Agenda 21 actually is and what it means.
Yeah, man. One of the sort of related to this, like I know we can get into all of the buzzwords and everything that really obfuscate what's going on, because like who's going to argue with like things being sustainable? That's a
Right.
good
How
word.
could
It's
you?
just
Everyone loves clean
right.
water, doesn't right? I mean, you've seen it. Why would you say no to clean water? So, and that's how they kind of sell it to the fucking normie. Like, well,
Yeah.
we all want clean drinking water, don't we? Well, okay, yeah, sure. Well, this is how we're going to get clean drinking water. Well, wait a second. Hold on. Let's slow down here. What do you mean that I can't go fishing anymore? You know?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So as you were
Absolutely.
saying, you were alluding to something.
Oh yeah, I was gonna get into where you started talking here about like what our last conversation was with you, me, and I am. We were talking about um, the densest cities in America house the most childless women. A mind-blowing 70% of childless women above the age of 40 reside in the DC metro area. And, you know, the last chat we had, we're talking about marriage and single women and childless women, and how this is basically a plague on our ability to create solid families, strong families, to resist things like this, local local communities that can withstand these things. Like maybe once upon a time, there were communities that were strong enough to resist this kind of propaganda. But these days, somewhere in our parents' generation, um, the town hall meeting, like you described earlier, there would be people who would actually be able to stop the the reduction in parking. But somewhere in the middle there, um, we lost the ability to actually make real changes, or to stand up against this stuff, and now it's just sort of being foisted upon us. And now, as the micromanagement of everyone's life is being steered in the direction of things like 2030, we're just seeing things escalate to the point where 40% of, or I'm sorry, yeah, 70%, or I'm sorry, I don't know how many women are actually childless, but I'm pretty sure it's a huge amount. And then that childless women means single women, probably single men who don't have families to keep their heads on straight are going to be susceptible to the consumption culture that's also being fed to them. Because why save your money and invest in the future if you're not going to have a family? Why buy a house if you're not going to have a family? Why do all of these things? You can just chase tail till you're dead, whichever happens first. If you're not going to invest in other people, if you're not going to have kids, if you're not going to get those types of things rolling, have roots, create any kind of real culture. And it's almost like it's just one thing after the other, and it's snowballed to the point where we are where we are.
Well, you're living, you're in a straitjacket, like going back to the whole male female dichotomy. You're And even myself, I'm guilty of this, and I'm sure a lot of my listeners and some other guys out there would kind of echo these words, is that you're too busy chasing women. You're spending hours talking to women that you're never going to have sex with. And all that time, energy, and effort going to try to get a nut off could have been dedicated to taking an extra credit in taking some credits in college, or taking up a trade, or focusing more on your job or something like that, versus you having a girlfriend or some some type of steady lay where you don't have to necessarily worry about chasing women. You know, it's like, I remember my ex-girlfriend, she used to fuck me on a Friday night and then go out with her friends. And she kept doing this for like a month or two straight. And then it dawned on me, I go, wait a second. You're screwing me Friday nights to make sure I don't go out Friday and Saturday. And she starts laughing. She goes, oh, you caught on to that, huh? I'm like, I got you. I got you. You just want me to stay home. I see what you're doing now. And, you know, there's a logic to that, you know, there's the reason why she was doing that. And, you know, when you have a steady, you're not necessarily going to go out and try to find other women. But guys are, you know, staying home. They're messaging girls on social media, on Instagram, Tinder, whatever, or they're isolating themselves watching pornos.
Yeah. And I, you know, honestly, I don't blame guys for not getting into relationships and having these sorts of things if they're able to, because of just the state of marriage and the state of the relations between men and women, what we want, what we think are important, you know, most people's inability to come to terms with the fact that men and women are actually different. You know, we've been brainwashed for so many years that, you know, we're basically the same thing, and women have lost what it means to be feminine. They don't know these skills, and men have lost what it means to be masculine. They don't know how this stuff works. You know, the idea of a man or a woman, we have a Supreme Court justice that can't even define such things, you know, like this. When you look outside in the world as it is right now, it just absolutely seems like everything's upside down. And then we're being managed into 2030 as well. It's like all pervasive, you know, and everything is in a straight, like we do feel like we're in a straitjacket. I think that that's a really apt description, because it's almost like there are no avenues in most people's experience. I think there are very few.
Yeah, just the constant promoting of sex everywhere. You know, you can't get away from an image of some insta thought. It's really hard, you know. If you like on Snap, I have Snapchat because my brother communicates with me through that, and as soon as I click on Snapchat, I'm getting like fucking pictures of like, you know, like 20-something-year-olds like looking sexy and hot, and then it's like, dude, I just can't get away from these images, you know. It's hard to detox yourself as a man from you know, the navel gazing. Like it's so hard. Like you try doing no fap or not watching pornos, but you know, you look at an ad when you're in the shopping mall, or you know, you see some type of commercial. It's always, you know, something hot that you want to fuck, you know.
It is definitely everywhere. Yeah, I find myself just having to turn these things off, just because, like you said, you know, you open up Instagram or something, and even if you curate it and, you know, you're only following things that you're interested in, like, it doesn't matter. You know, I see all sorts of ridiculous stuff on there, and it's just like, God damn, I don't want to think about this. Like, get away from me. Like, can I just open up my phone and not see sex in my face, or can I not see these things, you know?
Yeah, it's a bit nauseating. It's
It
a
is.
bit nauseating.
Yeah.
You know, and you can, and I wrote about this, and I haven't released any of this type of work yet. I have like a 30,000 word, like almost like a mini book that I had written like 5 years ago, that the over sexualization of a culture leads to desexualization. What I mean by that is that if you leave so little left to the imagination, you don't necessarily want to go out and pursue those women anymore. All right, I saw her tits, I see her ass, I see what she's about. I'm good. You know, you basically become the old man who gets off just images, and his sexual satisfaction is met just by looking at a woman. Where it's like, I'm good on that. And when I was in Southeast Asia, I remember going swimming in the Mekong River, and all the women were wearing jeans and a hoodie. I was like, what the fuck are you doing swimming in a jeans and a hoodie? Well, one is they're afraid of being raped because rape is still prevalent in a lot of the third world. And the other thing is that because they're sexually modest. So when I would see a woman in on the city street and you catch a little bit of skin, you're like, ooh, I want to see a little bit more. Now you're a little bit intrigued versus, now like I see like 18, 19-year-olds with no bra and you can see right through her shirt. And I'm like, I'm good. That's a good enough image for me.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point that you make there, because like sometimes I see a woman dressed really in a scantily clad, and it's almost like I'm just over it. Like it's too much. It's just like, like whatever. Like, yeah, whatever. I've already I know everything about you already. Like I'm just, it's actually easier to avoid some of that, like when you're out and about. Because if she's just showing everything off, like, of course you're going to look, because, we're visual creatures, but at the same time, it's almost easier to not be interested in that, because you've just already gotten like so much of it into your stimulus, into your brain,
It's crazy. The women with the best bodies actually cover up the most. Just little side note for the guys out there. Because they know what they have is really hot. So they actually tend to hide it and don't want anybody to see it. So my ex-girlfriend, she had an hourglass figure, but you would never be able to tell. The normie would never be able to tell that she had a smoking hot bod. One of my good buddies from Nepal, he spoke fluent English, fluent Khmer, fluent Vietnamese, and when I introduced her to my friends, my buddy from Nepal, who's been with like hundreds and hundreds of women, he goes, she's got a smoking body. And he's like, because he knew the way she was dressed that she was hiding everything, but you can still see the silhouette a little bit of what she was hiding underneath the clothes. And out of respect for me, because I would just beat her senselessly if she dressed like a war. Circling back about what kind of stands up against a lot of these policies and a lot of this social engineering. It's unfortunately a lot of gangs. It's any type of organized crime, things of that nature. I know in a town on Long Island, they tried doing something in the vein of trannies and ladyboys. And I think a few small business owners who had connections kind of just went to that place and said, listen, you try doing this, we're just going to burn your fucking building down. Like, just straight up. Like, kind of like this Tony Soprano kind of a thing where you try doing it. Watch what happens. You got a cat there, dude.
I do.
I know listeners can't see it, but I can.
Yeah. She likes to steal the show, typical lady.
Yeah, typical lady, right? Feline feminine.
Yep, she is. Yeah, man, I think that's probably pretty accurate as far as like what is going to actually keep things away. I know when my dad's from the Bronx, and he would tell me stories about when the Bronx was still primarily Italian, and they would keep it that way in the Little Italy section.
Which is now half a city block.
Yeah.
That's the boomers. Thank you, boomer. You realize how much damage was done by the boomers, and that's all coming to a head now. Treating property like an asset, not a place where you live. This doesn't happen in Europe. In Europe, property just gets passed down. Property is not as fluid as it is in the United States. China in Asia or Far Asia is kind of mimicking the United States' model, where property is being treated as an investment vehicle, like these ghost cities, as I alluded in that first article.
Well, man, this has been fascinating. It's been good to even though I read the articles, it's been good to have you extrapolate on it and talk to me a bit more about it, help fill in some of the blanks of what I don't know about these sorts of things, and hopefully my listeners have gotten a bit of a better grasp on the situation as well. Would you want to talk about what you got coming up? I know you mentioned a couple names at the beginning before we started recording. What do you know your future plans are now that?
Yeah, I Joe Atwill, I have to circle back with him. I put him on the back burner. I shot him a message that, my channel got a couple of community guideline strikes. I think there was some type of purge, and I got hit with a community guideline strike. Again, something to do with the scamdemic. And I got a couple articles that kind of piggyback off of these articles about the miscegenation and the processing of a culture. A little bit about this whole, I don't know, the laptop class, vegan, sustainable yoga type of deracinated, middle class, where they kind of feign status, but at the same time they care about the environment, but don't want to get involved with actually helping people that are kind of down on their luck and want to abrogate their responsibilities to some type of bureaucratic state to take care of these problems. A lot of the left, as we know it, the woke left, it's not actually engaging with the community. It's abrogating responsibilities to a stakeholder to fix problems, but at the same time disengage with the problem. Where, what I said in the article, how are you supposed to explain the bougie brunch core restaurant while there's a junkie outside? Like, do you have blinders on? Do you not see this guy pulling his dick out while he's passing by a bunch of brunch thoughts? Like, how are you, what's going on here? So I really want to start researching this a little bit more, and I want to write a couple articles about that. And I do have another article about Syria 2011 revisited, about how the derp state goes in and subverts a lot of these nations. I have a lot of good material on what had happened in Syria 10 years ago, and I want to flesh all that out and put an article together and kind of show everyone like how that whole situation went down, how YouTube played a hand in sloppy jihad, and some of the parallels and differences between the war in Ukraine and what had happened in Syria and Libya during the Arab Spring 10 years ago. So that's kind of what I'm taking around with. I'll be back. I'm going to keep uploading to BitChute, so you guys can, in the meantime, go to BitChute. This chat we're doing, I'll be sure to upload on a BitChute, and you guys can catch me there with Ian.
Right on, man. Yeah, dude, it's pretty crazy, especially like what you're talking about with the parallels with what's going on with Ukraine.
It's
as well.
too much information. I think I was talking to you about this with Ian, that there's too much information to digest. You don't know if you're getting these are credible sources. I know me and you are in that Telegram group, and everyone's throwing these articles around. And I think Foreign Devil, Expat Aftermath, kept interjecting, saying, can you give me more information? You're just sending me this article based on nothing. I don't know who this person is. I don't know who this blogger is. I don't know where he's getting his information from. And that's kind of the reason why we've always abrogated our responsibilities to these so-called experts in the first place. But we're at an inflection point where a lot of these experts have been co-opted by whoever's paying them. So yeah. This is why there's so many new podcasts. There's so many new YouTubers out there. There's so many different people throwing information at you. A lot of this ties back into a lot of Cass Sustein's writing, who I fucking hate Cass Sustein, but he had written 10 years ago, when he was a communications czar for the Obama administration, that one of the objective is to disinfo everything, to create these Twitter bots, to make sure that there is no cohesion, there is no consensus on something from the layman.
Yeah, man, it is impossible to tell what's true and what's fake. There's too much information. Every day, it seems like something new is happening or a series of new events are happening. You get bombarded from morning to night. Like, if you are someone who works at a computer like myself, I see 10 stories in a day, each one requiring complex,
Statistics,
yeah,
math
statistics.
formulas.
Yeah. And an expectation to understand it. You need to understand what's been going on up until that point. And then sometimes things take 90-degree turns or 180 turns sometimes, like because you can't tell what's true. There's no way, even though what's going on in Eastern Europe right now, like who is to say any of that is accurate at all from either side? Hell, there might not even be a war going on at all.
Right.
Who knows? Like, who knows?
They're telling us 10, 15,000 people are dead. Really?
Yeah.
I don't know. Or is this are you sure about that? Yeah, that's kind of why I was going to write the Syria article, because YouTube wasn't necessarily as co-opted. In fact, they were promoting a lot of this to get jihadists to go and fight in Syria by allowing jihadists to make YouTube channels. And that's part and parcel because they're not a professional military, where in Ukraine and Russia, Russia's obviously a professional military. They're not, the Russian military is not going to be walking around uploading onto fucking TikTok, and again, the Ukrainian military, I don't even know if that is classified as a military, but they definitely are paramilitary in a sense. And they too are not going to be necessarily uploading to things onto YouTube and to TikTok versus sloppy jihad in Libya or in Syria, where they were actually going about and doing these things. And then on the Syrian military side, they weren't uploading anything because they were a professional military. They're not going to actually be doing these things. So anything that from their point of view was uploaded by Syrian citizens that were in a town or village that was being sieged, let us say. And for me, and where I would get some of my sources from and my intel information on doing these shows, MGTOW chats, I still go back to my sources prior to the scamdemic and those who were purged prior to the scamdemic, because they were the ones talking about this before any of this was actually happening, and they had lost their voice 3, 4, 5 years ago. During that, around that time when David Icke got purged, that was around the time a lot of people that I had listened to got thrown off the internet. So after all these forerunners to a lot of this information were thrown to the wayside, or thrown down a rabbit, whatever they were. It's hard to get their information now. All these other new crop of pseudo conspiratorial type of guys, Joe Rogan-esque, they just seem to come out of nowhere with really no background. They hadn't written any books. Their blogs are fairly new. I don't necessarily pay any attention to those types. That's just my 2 cents on it. It's kind of hard to decipher what's true and what's not true.
It's so fascinating about something you said there, like talking about maybe 5 years ago when people were getting kicked off at that time, like the multiple purges of social media from a lot of dissident voices. It just kind of blows my mind thinking back, maybe 2014, especially, you being in the MGTOW circles and me kind of like dabbling into all different sort of red pill, quote unquote, aspects of the internet. It just seems so wild where the conversation has taken, a guy like you, as far as like a content creator, because some of the first stuff I heard, you broadcast, maybe 4 years ago, it was basic kind of MGTOW stuff, problems with women, problems with relationships and these sorts of things. And now fast forward 4 years, our conversations and the stuff I hear you talking about, global politics, Agenda 2030, like the conversation we had now, what do you think about that? Have you thought about how, your own work and your topics of interest and stuff, how that's changed as we've sort of seen these things unravel in front of us, all these plans unfold, like what's important to us now and what the conversation is and these things.
Well, I think it's good that more people are aware, cognitively aware of what's happening, but they're two lane car lengths behind people such as ourselves, so to speak. So, take people that listen to Tucker Carlson, for example. Okay, I mean that's a good entry point, but you're still kind of playing catch up to a lot of the people that have already been thrown off the internet.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I see. Too late, too little, too late. It's look. You can, a lot of the elephants in the room no one wants to acknowledge, whether it's the JOOs, whether it's the problem with Instagram, Insta Thoughts, how Instagram is basically women's pornography. It's still the attacking of men. I mean, that's never going to fucking end no matter what. Just, like I see a lot of these normie cons still attacking pornography, regardless of how you feel about it. You're attacking men for watching pornography, but you're not attacking the women that are promoting their OnlyFans or their Pornhub pages or things like that.
Right.
You see this attack on John to go out and solicit prostitution, but you're not attacking the prostitute. So you've completely inverted the situation where men are obviously under the gun and being attacked for being men, but you're not attacking women's hypergamy and female nature, because for
women are empowered, right? That's empowerment for her to go out and be a prostitute.
You're not going to take women's power away.
Right.
So she can go out and be a prostitute, and she can do all these type of things, be human trafficked, what have you, whatever. But you're attacking the enabler. You're attacking the drug. You're attacking the drug user. You're not attacking the drug dealer.
Right. Right.
Which is, laughable in a sense, but that's why there is MGTOW. I know there's a lot of people in the cuck bund who don't ascribe to the MGTOW lifestyle, but I remember Turd Flinging Monkey. He was on my show numerous times, and he said, listen, until you acknowledge the elephant in the room, I'm going my own way. Well, what's the elephant in the room? Well, it's the female nature and allowing it to run rogueshot over your society.
Yes. Yeah.
And you have to realize that Agenda 2030, one of its staples is women's empowerment. What's women's empowerment? Giving them equal opportunities, allowing them to be part of the Borg, and allowing them to dictate social policies where, pedos are wonderful, trannies are wonderful, the heroin addict should have his own safe space, and you're not allowed to criticize it.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't seem to, they have no foresight to a lot of these things that they're totally okay with, and how the words basically saying no to something is equating Nazism. It blows my mind away.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, it's just the childlike nature of these creatures, and then we give them the power to make decisions, and I don't know why we're surprised when they make,
we're surprised irrational. Because we forgot a lot of basic
principles. Yes.
We forgot a lot of principles. I remember Elon Musk being on Joe Rogan. I don't like Elon Musk. I know he's like he's kind of been this lightning rod for people on both sides of the Great Divide. But when COVID happened and everyone was sitting home and eating frozen pizzas, he says, well, if you stop working, things stop working. If you stop working, things stop working. And he's like, I don't understand how we got so far to this point where if you think you could sit home and lights are still going to be on if everyone else is sitting home.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, I really want to give everyone a good premise, because we're talking about Agenda 2030. You have to realize something, that the biodiversity agreement and the main underpinning of Agenda 2030 is to bring down the first world, especially the United States, and pulling up the third world to a certain level, but not for those countries to achieve a certain level of wealth. So you're outsourcing your wealth to the third world, but at the same time, not allowing the third world to achieve and strive to the point of a first world nation, and making sure that these third world countries get stuck in a certain middle income to lower income national bracket where, okay, you have a paved road, but your school system is still shitty. Okay, you have a manufacturing base, but your government is still highly corrupt and still taking money from underneath the table. So that's more or less what Agenda 21 is. Your way of life is unsustainable because you have a high meat intake, beef intake, whatever, pork, chicken, air conditioning, golf courses. Those things are unsustainable for the first world. Third world is unsustainable because you don't have women's empowerment and you're still burning garbage, things of that nature. So you have to, again, bring down the first world, bring up the third world, where again, it's global socialism,
Right.
in a sense. And again, socialism and fascism, it's the same coin, just different sides.
Yeah, it definitely does seem that way. It doesn't really matter anymore. Like I think maybe 10 years ago, everyone was like, we're not a socialism and all of these things were like hot buzzwords.
And that comes from the Tea Party.
Right. But at this point now, it doesn't even matter. Like, and if you really look at it, like we've been a socialist country for a long time. When you look at the where the taxes are going and how it's being used, like these ideas are
Well,
it doesn't matter.
Donald Trump said it best during, I think, in the 2016 election run-up when he was debating with some other person or whatever. He said, "We are a socialist country. Look at our progressive income taxes. Like that's socialism in itself. But the problem is that it's socialism for you and it's capitalism for them."
Right. Yes. Well, Lamprey, man, I've had you on for a while. I appreciate you coming on short notice and having a chat. It's always a pleasure having you on, man, and definitely enlightening. I feel like I got a much better handle on some of these things, putting it into words, having a chat.
I think the articles I had written are again, it's a good view, it's a good understanding. I try to make it as easy for the normie to comprehend. And I made some good points in it for people not to get so bogged down and lost in the weeds on this topic. Again, I focus more on the real estate thing and especially the climate change agenda, and not worry so much about global homo and global tranny, which again are appendages of Agenda 2030, but really the crux of it is the climate change agenda and how they transfer the transformation of the real estate market. Those are the two quintessential points of Agenda 2030. And a lot of these things, again, you can look back at old UN doctrines 40 years ago on how these things came about, some of the key players in it, and their ties to other various oligarchs. It's all out there in the open. You just have to take the time and due diligence to research this. For me, again, I've been doing this for 10 years. I've downloaded, God, hundreds of PDFs from various websites, whether it's some local village implementing some type of bicycle path, right up to a UN doctrine that was written some 30, 40 years ago.
That's funny, man. Well, Easter was last Sunday for you. I saw you cook some good stuff up. It's that season. It's time to
my Bugman Easter.
Yeah, your Bugman Easter. And this is Holy Week for us. We got a few services going on, and Pascha is on Sunday. So in these crazy times, I got to keep pushing the God pill. I got to keep telling people to look for the truth,
Well,
Um,
I do want to mention, because this is something that I get attacked on quite a bit, is like, what now? What do we do? What are
right.
some options? And I had written on the last few paragraphs of the article I put up on 420 is there's really no opting out at this point. You know, there's so many people are now relocating. They're searching for greener pastures. You're going to have to realize that the United States, there's no more like pasture for you to run away to. This redistributing of the hoi polloi across the United States is just another part of a bigger scheme that's being wielded out. So if you want to have chickens in Idaho, just know that there's a good chance in that location that you're relocating to, there is some type of Agenda 2030 policy in that location. There's very few places left in the United States that you can run away to and get away from a lot of this type of stuff that's happening, you know. And
Right, because you were saying that no matter where you go, the local towns and communities have taken the money, the
right,
federal funds. So that means that since they took the money, that comes with the governance as well. You can't separate these things. I
correct.
know my buddy, he just moved to like middle of nowhere, Michigan or something, I think, in like a literal like nowheresville town. And guess who the sheriff is? Black lesbian.
Right.
You know, and there's pride flags all over the police station, and you know, all of these things in their downtown. Like you can't get away. There's no getting away from it, man. It's everywhere.
Correct. It is everywhere. Unless you want to move to rural West Virginia, where you know the local sheriff is missing his front teeth. I mean, you could
I would
try
probably
that.
get along with that guy way better than the other, you know.
Yeah, you know that's the unfortunate aspect of Agenda 2030. You know, because a lot of these policies have been propagating underneath the radar without people really acknowledging it. So I
Yeah,
think
and it's all obfuscated, right? Like the your normie who doesn't understand who the foot soldiers of these change vectors are. They don't see the connection. Like when I make that comment, like, oh yeah, the black lesbian constable, like they're just like, well, that's who they are, you know, that's
well,
just
how did
like
that
what
person get there? Who
right, how
who appointed them?
exactly. It's like what E. Michael Jones says, that they're the perfect foot soldiers, you know, even if they're
Avant-garde.
yeah, even if they're not rainbow people, you know, like there are certain groups of people who are the ideal candidates to be the managerial class that are going to put in these or implement these policies, even if they don't understand the policy in a grand scheme. They don't need to. They're just the perfect stooges, like the perfect players to just put into positions, and they will say yes to whoever their masters are, and will sow chaos naturally.
Anarcho-tyranny, I think is what they call it.
Yeah, I think so.
Anarchy turn and when you try, that's the thing. If you try talking to someone about the constable being a black lesbian, it's like, you know, it's like drinking from a fire hose. So,
Right.
and again, that's kind of why I wrote these articles, as an easy way for the normie to digest without them getting too lost in the weeds on why that constable is been put there in place. You know,
Yes.
you have to there has to be some type of starting point, and that's why I had written these series of articles. You have to spoon feed it, and this is kind of the situation where we're at now. A lot of people want to just stick their heads in the sand and just not deal with it, you know, because again, if you turn on that spigot, they can't handle the amount of information you're throwing at them.
Yeah, that's very true. Like we are so we are so far gone from normalcy, and they've done such a good job of just boiling the frog, for so long, and, changing definitions of things and helping to forget things that used to be common knowledge,
Well, they cloudy it on purpose.
Right,
That's
right.
what. So you're being distracted. Well, why is there? Like, again, going back to the constable thing. Like, well, it's who they are. Well, let me explain to you why this is bad. And again, they can't digest that type of information on such an esoteric level.
Right. Yeah, it definitely has just been, uh cat again.
Right.
She just needs to be center stage,
She's
She
got a
can't-
Snapchat premium.
Right. Especially with this angle.
She's yeah, right. She's selling her cat pee.
That's right. Bring me that money. Yeah, man. It's so true. Like even just the things that, our parents or their parents just knew naturally has been completely lost to us, and then repackaged and resold as normal, and getting through that amount of brainwashing from the education system all the way up through entertainment and everything else is just it's just like such an uphill battle. It's almost impossible to counteract it for most people. I don't think most people will ever get through it, and they won't even understand it, especially even when it's like got its boot on their face, or it's taking their food, or it's cranking up their gas prices so they can't live, or increasing the cost of their homes, or making it impossible for them to have homes. It's bearing down on us. This entire weight of this the culmination of all of these things is becoming very real.
As long as they keep the optics of wealth in place, I don't think it's necessarily going to change. So, for example, going back to that constable is a good way of looking at this. Is that okay? That person is obviously really not adequate for that position, but so long as there's no counter to that, again, violence, for example, or some type of economic collapse, calamity, straight anarchy, you're not going to remove those people from power. So
right.
The 25-year-old who's got an internship for U.S. aid, so as long as U.S. aid's being funded, that 25-year-old is going to have that internship, right? And the promise of some type of job or aspiration to be a member of the laptop class. So as long as that's still in place, this is not going to change, because a lot of these NGOs and not-for-profits and these make work jobs are there, and those positions are filled. This is not going to change in any aspect whatsoever. And a lot of these positions are filled by people that don't necessarily have to get their hands dirty. So a lot of these middle management, mid-tier positions are filled, and there's still money to supplement them. I don't see how on earth this is going to change.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't think that the powers that be who want to keep it this way are going to allow these sorts of things to happen. Like I don't predict
money printed go burr.
Yeah, I don't predict uprisings. I don't predict these sorts of things. I just in general, like, things are just going to get more expensive.
Right, because they're not producing anything.
Right.
That, again, I'm putting stickers on a stepladder. That's a job, is it?
Yeah.
Right. How about the janitor? I think the janitor should get paid a little bit more, don't you think? And he keeps the fucking toilet bowls clean. I think that's kind of more important than putting stickers on a power tool about, electrical and fire hazard. You know what I mean? Just saying that. Or the woman who's taking the application for a man who wants to have his dick chopped off. Like, that's a fucking job. That someone is sitting there and processing the future tranny post-ops health insurance policy. You know, it's wild, man.
It is, man. It is. Well,
It's interesting. You got to keep it. It's hard to see. Like I've been a little bit better the last few months. I was going through a little bit of a rough spell since relocating, and you know, my job and everything. Just the amount of, I'm having a hard time grasping the amount of abrogating responsibilities to people of skill in a specific job. I was talking to Kevin Michael Grace about this, and he was like pushing back because I was talking about more on the lines of legal advice, how, you know, people can't necessarily give legal advice when, you know, reading something shouldn't necessarily have to go to an attorney. If the, I'm using this as an example because I should not have used that as an example when talking to Kevin Michael Grace. But again, if let's say a roof is leaking, for example. Oh, the roof is leaking. Well, how do you know it's leaking? Are you a roofer? No, it's fucking leaking, man. Like, fuck, dude. Get up there and figure out what's causing it. Or we should call in a roofer. No, you get up there and fix it. See if you can stop it without having to call someone else. Like, I'm growing up in New York, and are you serious right now? You want me to get a roofer? Get the fuck up there and fix it. Like, god damn it. What the fuck, man? I can't stand boomers. This is boomer shit. Oh, we can't use a roofer because he's in the business of fixing roofs. Oh, so you want to get an engineer? The engineer's going to come along and give you like a Cadillac idea on how to fix it. It's going to cost you an obscene amount of money than just spit and glue. God, man, shit. I'm sick of listen, I've been hawking on the boomer shit for a while because they're a group of people that have not been engaged in the workforce for over a decade, for the most part, the overriding majority of them. For the few that are still in the workforce, they're probably really fucking good at their job, and there's probably no one else better to fill those jobs than a fucking 7-year-old boomer. All right. So all these boomers that are mid-tier IQ are cashed out, and they have no idea what the fuck is going on anymore. Not a clue. Well, just go to the Help Wanted ad in the local Gazette. What? You know, the Gazette, you know, the
penny saver.
Yeah, the penny saver. You go right there. Hey, civil service, get yourself a job with the police force. Can't go wrong. I'm sorry, they're defunding the police. I don't know if it's a good idea. They got pension. You get a pension, you stop working when you're 45. Yeah, but if I'm up against a fucking basketball American right now and I got to take his ass down, I might be on Fox News.
You're definitely going to be on Fox News for sure with the climate that's going on right now, man. Oh, Lord.
Dude, it's crazy. You know, I was supposed to go to Kings Point Merchant Mariner College. And I was looking into it because I got accepted, which is, you know, an honor to be accepted to such a prestigious school. It's very hard to get accepted to a place. And then I'm looking into it, and I'm like, do they hire Americans anymore to serve on merchant vessels? And then I'm looking into like the demographics on who serves on these vessels. It's Filipinos, it's Koreans, it's dudes from like the Slavic countries. Americans don't do these jobs anymore. And they're not going to want to pay an American because he's going to want a bunch of shit. So I'm not going to this school, and I'm not going to take out these student loans if there's no future in it.
Right. That's good thinking, because plenty of people don't think, and then they wind up $100,000 in debt with a degree they can't make any money with.
Fucked up story. I know one guy that graduated, got married, just bought a house when COVID hit. He was a deckhand on a tugboat in New York City. As soon as COVID hit, guess what? Lost his job. Because guess what? You're not pulling any cargo ships into the Hudson, are they? No, they're not. You're laid off. You're the first person. You're the last person that got hired. You're the first person to get fired. And he lost it. He lost everything.
That sucks.
Yeah, 30 years old, something like that. It's really sad.
Yeah.
That's me venting. I had to do it. I
Part
don't
of the
vent
edit-
really as much as I used to. A lot of my listeners love it when I go on tirades like that.
It's excellent, man. That's good stuff. But yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. That's why I had you on here to have a chat. Always enjoy your perspective.
Yeah. Meanwhile,
But,
the lesbian down the road, she's got, Amazon Prime packages stacked outside. Does she work? Does she? I'm seeing a lot of Amazon packages, and it seems like they're home all the time. What the hell's going on here? No, they're gonna go buy a child. Fuck, dude, crazy.
will it show up in an Amazon package?
They show up in an Amazon package, just collecting Dorito dust in her fucking cleavage, and fucking ordering dildos off of fucking eBay. This is how bad it's gotten, man. Fucking, you're talking about Grubhub. I remember my stepbrother's constantly ordering from Grubhub. You have a car. The place cooking the food is literally a quarter of a mile down the road. Go and pick it up. Go and pick it. No. You don't want to leave. Playing Call of Duty. I want to play. There's a part of me that wants to play video games so bad, and then I downloaded a video game, and I realized I wasted 2 hours and accomplished nothing playing this video game because it's so intricate and so hard to play, and it's basically simulating what it is a job is at this point.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. 100%.
It's not an arcade game anymore. That's what it is. Video games are arcade. You just jump in, you play it. I scored a bunch of points. That was fun. Now I gotta triangulate and do math coordinates. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? Devin Stack was ripping on this lawnmower simulator. Did you see that?
No, I didn't.
I reposted it a few times in Piling over and over and over again. Dude, hilarious. Lawnmower simulator. You get to basically cut lawns. That's the simulation. I'm dead ass. This is a video game. I'm not making this up.
That's insane. That's absolutely ridiculous.
You could start your own landscaping business.
And actually make real money as opposed to just sitting there spending money on Grubhub deliveries
and pretending you're riding a lawnmower.
Right? Why pretend when you can actually go do it? But then you wouldn't be in your sweatpants in your air conditioned apartment.
I couldn't be watching. I got the porn stream in one corner and my lawnmower simulator another, and a hot pocket in my left hand.
Oh, we're so decadent. It's terrible.
You gotta love it.
Oh man, I don't know.
I feel so guilty.
It's brutal. It's brutal. Well, I refuse to despair. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing and avoiding Lawnmower Simulator. And
you do that.
I'm just going to keep trying.
I'm going to send you I'll send it to you when it's
Please do.
I'm so going to. It was really funny the way Devin Stack uploaded that. It was funny as hell.
Right on, man. Well, I've had you for a while, so I think we should. This is probably Lawnmower Simulator is probably a good time to sign off.
A good way. Hey, listen, with Agenda 2030, that'll be unsustainable. So it'll turn into a fantasy and mythology in the future. Oh, they used to have lawns.
Yeah,
they used to ride a lawnmower. It ran on gas. Yes.
Yeah, it goes from being a simulation to a fantasy game.
Right.
Oh, God.
It's great stuff.
Oh man, damn. All right. Well,
yeah,
I'm signing this one off.
Yeah, I'll let you go.
Well, thank you again, man. I appreciate the talk, and I'm glad we got this out, and that was pretty funny.
Yeah, man. We'll be in touch. We'll do it again in a couple of weeks or something like that while I'm on hiatus. All right.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure, man.
All right. You have a good one, Pat.
Yeah.
Take care.
I think I stopped recording.
Yeah, you're good.
Right on. That was funny, man. Lawnmower Simulator. Holy shit.
Okay, you're gonna make me pull it up right now. Hold on.
Yeah, please do. I'm gonna take a piss while you do that. That's so funny. My fucking cat just keeps showing up in the middle of my in the middle of my broadcasts. Oh, there it is. There it is, Lawnmower Simulator.
Yeah, I just sent it to you.
Oh my God.
Eat the bugs, get in your pod, mow your virtual lawn.
Oh man.
I wonder if he's a Fed man. I really do think he is.
Oh, Devin Stack.
Yeah,
You think so?
it's hard to tell.
Didn't you meet
He's
him?
so good at what he does.
Yeah. Well, you met up with him, right?
No.
Then who is the guy you met up with at the Georgia Guidestones?
Andy Nowicki.
That's not the same guy?
Yeah, no, Andy Nowicki, he was friends with, who's that fucking guy who's like king of the alt-right? Spencer.
Oh, really?
He was BFFs with him and Jay Dyer, and he had a falling out with the both of them. And that's how he wound up being friends with me, because no one else wanted to talk to him anymore.
What did he do that got him sort of ostracized?
He didn't agree with Spencer a lot of his shit. And he got into a fight with Jay Dyer over the Catholic Church, because Jay's a Russian Orthodox.
Right.
And then Nowicki, his channel was growing quite a bit, and then his channel got terminated. So now he's kind of just writes mostly. He's got a few books out. His books are pretty good.
Yeah, he wrote The Insurrectionist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard you guys talking about that on one of your episodes, I think.
Yeah, he's probably the most frequent guest I've had on. And from him, I was able to get in touch with Tim Kelly, and that kind of built from there. Gotcha. And then probably the biggest street cred I get is because I'm friends with Sandman.
Yes, definitely. I can't remember how I actually found you, to be honest with you. I don't know if it was Sandman or if it was Turd Flinging Monkey. It might have been, or maybe I heard you on Tim Kelly.
It was Tim Kelly.
You think so?
Yeah, I remember you messaging me. It was like, I heard you on Tim.
Okay. Yeah. Tim Kelly's just awesome. I've like
that's where a lot of my information and stuff is derivative off of him and his the people that he's had on.
Yes. Yeah, I've been fortunate to have a couple of his guests on, and I still need to start expanding. I kind of ran into like a weird spot where a lot of the people I've been trying to get have probably too big of a following for my size of a show.
Who you contacted?
I am trying to get this guy, some of the Jay Dyer crew on. Like I'm trying to get Jay, and I'm trying to get that primal edge health guy, Tristan Taggart. Trying to get him. But I'm also trying to get
Jay won't touch you.
Yeah, probably not.
No,
yeah.
He's got a big ego, and yeah. I messaged him a couple times. He never responded. This was before he started doing shit with Alex Jones. So
yes, he seems to be a hard man to get in touch with. But yeah, I'm actually trying to get clergy on. That's my next goal, is to actually get like legit priests and deacons who are sort of active in the social media world. I'm trying to get them on.
See if you can get Sensus Fidelium on.
Let me write that down. Sensus Fidelium. I'm not sure.
He's at the most popular Catholic channel on YouTube.
Okay. Oh yeah. All right. I think I know this guy. Yeah, there are some Orthodox clergy that I'm also trying to get on that are doing outreach and stuff. And I'm going to this event called Montanica in June. That's like got a number of it's focused on mission work. It's focused on evangelism and apologetics and stuff. I know Jay Dyer was there last year, and I'm hoping to like maybe network with some of the bigger name people, maybe get them to come on and talk to me about the work that they're doing, because everybody's doing some kind of publication or YouTube or something, you know. So just getting people on to talk about that stuff would be pretty great and interesting, you know. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, Jeffries and what's his face on Perloff. So that you know,
Yeah.
you already blew your load early on getting those guys on. You know, you could.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Well, I got another John L. Jeffries book over here that I really want to have him come on and talk to me about.
I have all of his books.
Yeah, I got this on Borrowed Fame.
I got it too. I haven't read it yet.
Yeah, it's a tome, dude. It's like serious. But I really want to read this and talk to him and just have him come on and tell me all about, you know, the background, how he got.
Let me know when you do that, because I've done 2 shows with Donald Jeffries, and I spoke with him a couple months ago around the time you had him on, and he loves talking to people. I did 2.5 hours with him. Yeah. We had a good time. His book, Survival of the Riches, is phenomenal. I've really enjoyed reading that.
I don't think I have that one yet, but I should add it to the list.
Oh,
I also want to get James Perloff back on, because I just got Tornado in a Junkyard, where he like goes after evolution, and yeah. I just want to hear him talk about it, you know.
He's fucking dope, man. He did. I will never forget when he did a chat with Tim Kelly, and he opened up the podcast with the bombing of Nagasaki. Dude, it blew my mind away. He goes, they dropped the little boy on the largest Catholic church in Asia, and he opened the show up with that. I'm like, that is a great way of opening up a 2-hour segment. I used to have a playlist of him and E. Michael Jones, not back to back with all them chatting. It's a shame. The best E. Michael Jones content is long gone. I shot a message to E. Michael Jones, like, you have to upload the Jewish capitalism chat you did, because that was just phenomenal, where he just talks about Jewish merchants subverting Germany in like the 17th century, and he's talking about what was it, fucking Tinder and like Bumble and stuff in India, leading to women getting raped. It was phenomenal. That's
wild. Yeah, E. Michael Jones is amazing. Like he has such a really, really good grasp of a lot of the social issues and where they come from, and how they kind of like, you know, originate from like you know, these different cultural groups and their mindsets and their ideologies, and how that plays out into like what we see now. And I know when I was first kind of getting into far right stuff, I was kind of taken back by him, because I hadn't really heard any of it. But then, you know, you start looking it up and you start checking early life of, you know, you check the early life section of the people that he's talking about, and you're like, why am I noting like this pattern? It just keeps coming up. And I wasn't even really religious or anything at the time yet. And it kept pushing me in the spiritual direction to try to understand it, because it didn't make sense any other way, you know, except from like an ethnic, ethno-religious perspective.
He did a chat with some far right guy, and he uploaded it on his channel. He just fucking steamrolled this fucking guy, who is often cited as a good source for like white nationalist material. And E. Jones just, dude, he fucking destroyed him. Let me see if I can find it.
Is it that fruity guy?
I'll let you know. Hold on. I'll find it for you. It was a recent chat. Fuck. I'll send it to you. It's pretty damn good. Yeah, you haven't. You don't know anything about Steve Hawker, do you?
I don't know. I thought you were talking about Richard Hook, but that's a different character. Who is Steve Haka?
He's popular in the manosphere. He's very popular in the manosphere. He always puts his channel to private every now and again.
Okay.
He likes the he's elusive. I'll put it to you that way. So you probably drop him into YouTube and some of his stuff pops up. I've done 3 or 4 shows with him.
I got a Manosphere guy coming on next week, actually. Bad Billy Pratt.
Oh, I messaged him. He's another one that's kind of a pain in the fucking dick bag to touch with. Make sure you mention my name to him. We follow each other on Twitter.
Right on. Yeah, I'm gonna read this book this weekend for our chat on let's see, next Wednesday, 27th. I got Bad Billy Pratt coming on, and we're gonna do a recording about Welcome to Hell.
Yeah, please mention my name to him. He goes, "Oh, Lamprey Milts mentioned you quite a bit, and he wants to get you on MGTOW chats. I know he's reached out to you, just something to that effect, and then I'll circle back to him later on."
Yeah, man, absolutely.
He's old, and this is between me and you. He shows his age once in a blue moon in some of his writings and some of his tweets. Where I'm like, you're showing that you're like 50, dude.
Yeah, he said somewhere in the area of like mid 40s.
Yeah, I get that sense from him that he's kind of not in tune with some specific things. He likes to oogle women, so that's how I know he's older. And some of the things he said are kind of like off kilter with some of the things that are going on. But overall, fantastic.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the talk. I've noticed he's been making his rounds on some pretty big interview channels, so it'll be good to have him on, and have an interesting chat with him, get his take. These older guys who have gone through the manosphere and like the pickup artist stuff, like they're always really interesting to talk to, or hear what they've got going on, just because especially anyone that hasn't killed themselves, because it seems to me that there's this real problem with pickup artists and ending their own lives when they hit like their late 30s, early 40s. Like 2 guys last year, their names completely escape because I don't follow pickup artist guys really, but I'm familiar with their work because I was a degenerate for quite a while. I was trying to rack up those notches after my ex-fiance turned out to be a psychopath. But yeah, 2 guys last year both killed themselves. Guys who were basically
I like to look into who these guys who off themselves.
Yeah, I can't, I wish I could have the name off the top of my head, but I can't think about them. But they're basically like guys who, just went to like Eastern Europe and made the PUA life. Like they made their life about blogging about women and stuff, kind of like Roosh, basically from the same circles as Roosh. And Roosh went Orthodox Christian, and some of these other guys, they went 9mm, and it's just like, it's just wild. I think a lot of it comes from the fact that they never actually healed the issues in themselves that were like driving them to constantly look for validation from women. I think that's a big part of like that PUA mindset, that like, I'm just going to like pick up women till the day I die or something. It's like a,
listen, I lived in Cambodia, and they definitely validated me. I didn't have a problem with on that level at all. Like I was able to give it up.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because that's a difference between like you got the validation that you wanted or whatever, but it wasn't actually like some deep-seated problem within you. Whereas some of these guys, they have like something they haven't dealt with in their past, and they just medicate it by chasing tail. Some people medicate it by smoking weed, some people with fentanyl, some people with making millions of dollars in a job that sucks or something. Like everybody's got their thing that they do to like not deal with their own problems. And some of these pickup guys, they just fill that hole with holes.
Yeah, it was really, I did it because I saw my friend's lifestyle, and he's like, "Fuck." I remember we just had some fucking whore in our face, and we were fucking wasted. And my best friend turns to me and he cracked a joke. He goes, "What do you think? What do you think so and so's doing back on Long Island?" And he mentioned like this fucking bar we used to hang out with. And we just were fucking laughing like this is so much better, man. Uh, so I didn't, you know, I think there also there's a big difference between Eastern European whores and Cambodian. There's big fucking differences.
Yeah.
There is differences in whoredom and bar girls and shit like that. So I can't, especially if you're not good looking. Like you're not good looking and you're not good looking and you're going to, prostitutes in Eastern Europe and they're just sleeping you because of your money and not because you're cool. That definitely will fuck with your psyche. For me,
Yeah.
it was because I was cool and good looking and was able to joke around and flirt with them. So it was much easier.
Yeah. Yeah. I also kind of didn't have the same issues. I mostly was doing it because I think mine had a lot to do with the fact that I was engaged to a psycho, and then I had basically decided like, okay, we're gonna do the monogamy thing, we're gonna do the long-term relationship thing. I guess this is the relationship and the wife that I've stumbled into, and things were fine until they weren't, and then that whole experience just kind of like broke any hope. Like when I realized like I was basically being lied to for like 2 years, like to my face by, someone who I was living with, who I didn't even really know who they were because they were basically like a professional liar. I think something in me that hoped in like a happy, healthy, like normal long-term relationship, like
Right.
broke, like I was like, I just couldn't trust anybody. So you know, I just did whatever the fuck I wanted to do, really. Like I just kind of went through women
Oh
and
yeah, because you felt like you wasted those couple of years and you were lied to.
yeah, definitely. But then, I'm at the point I am now where I'm damn near 40 and I just don't care anymore. Like, besides the fact that I think like it's actually immoral to keep doing those things and it's not actually helping me in any way. Yeah, I have no desire to do it anymore at all.
I don't blame you. White women as a whole, I kind of written them off, to be quite honest. I just think they're kind of hopeless at this point.
Yeah, it does seem like there is a lot of truth to that. They're more interested in like getting some job that doesn't matter
Right,
than
and then the serial monogamy thing, and they treat men like they're at a fucking all-you-can-eat buffet. I get it, and if I was a 24-year-old white woman, I'd probably wind up doing the same thing. Can't blame them.
yeah. Yeah, no, I think that I think that there's a lot of truth to that. And like I have a sister who fits kind of that bill, like she's done the exact same thing with her life. She got some good degrees, got some good paying jobs, it has a house, is kind of like a girl in her early 30s, but she's got no husband, she's got no kids, she's kind of a bit of a mess. Like she's a very intelligent and capable person,
Yeah, it doesn't
but
matter.
but she's still a woman, right? She's,
Right. It doesn't fucking matter. They
yeah,
have a
it
master's
doesn't
degree,
matter.
but then they got doggies and maybe they're on some type of SSRI. I mean, all that you can cover with Billy Pratt, no doubt.
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, this seems to be like his book seems to be like a collection of kind of like his dating experiences. So I'm sure we'll have quite a bit of stuff to talk about, because the majority of my dating I did on the West Coast, which made it unbelievably easy actually, because women have no clue out there. Like if you get past their standards, right? If you get to the point that they're attracted to you, it's just so easy, right? It's just like they don't understand anything about their own value or anything. Like they're like worse dogs than men. It's like, like it was never really, yeah. And learning that, going through the red pill in the pickup artist world, like learning that once I figured out that was the way women worked. Oh, it was like giving a kid the keys to the candy stores, basically.
I'm too much
you
of
know,
a Ferg. I'm more like Tom, like on that level. Like if I can't with a white woman, if I can't converse with you and the conversation is around your doggy and all this other type of shit, like I'm just totally turned off. Like I don't really give a fuck. Like
yeah, I guess
I'd
I
rather
was
do.
never
I'd
looking
rather.
for.
I've always enjoyed hanging out with guys and talking guy shit. Like that was always more stimulating to me than getting pussy. You know, it was just never really. That's why I was blown away with this one chick that I talked to you and I'm about because it's very rare for me to get rejected at this point. So I was a little taken back by that because usually 90% of the time I wind up getting their number or at least having a date, and then half the time of that I would get laid or a blowjob or something like that. But you know, I just don't. I don't really pursue it. Like I enjoy, when I first did the chats with I used to enjoy the game. I used to enjoy the flirting, and maybe just because I'm getting older, like I just don't really fucking care anymore. I really don't.
Yes, that's where it was with me too, man. I'm right there with you. Like I used to be able to pretty compartmentalize it. Like I had my dude friends for real things to talk about.
Right.
And then if I was going out with a girl, I knew like, all right, well, I gotta like listen to him in a certain way and kind of like turn my charm on. Like I looked at it more as like a kind of a game. And I just kind of like had a negative opinion of women. So I didn't expect any of them to be interesting outside of like attractive and like what they could do as far as like, is she going to cook? Is she going to come over and bring me beer? Like, can I schedule her once a week and like still keep it in the rotation and stuff?
Right.
Like I wasn't really, after my almost marriage, that's all I wanted from women. Like, you're Friday, you're Wednesday. Like that's all I wanted. And I mean, it was not good, like that's not a good thing. I wouldn't recommend people doing it, but I'm gonna be honest that that's how I looked at it.
Yeah, well, you're looking at nut. I mean,
That's it. Yeah.
Now it's more like I'm looking at someone just to hang out with.
Yeah, that'd be great. I was talking to actually a clergy at my I went to lunch with some guys from my church last week or the week before, and one of the clergy guys that I was talking to, like, we had this conversation because it's a lot of young dudes who are like in their mid-20s, like early 30s, who kind of haven't had the same experiences with women quite yet, or are still so young that they haven't put themselves together and kind of done the the womanizing part of your life. And just trying to just trying to stay positive about women in these environments. It's kind of tough. Like it's kind of tough to like stay positive and tell these guys that like, yeah, you might find like a good girl. Like I'm like, you might, but I wouldn't bet on it. I would just do the best you can, build yourself up, and focus on yourself. I would not be expecting to find a wife, as negative as that might sound, because I know a bunch of Christian guys, that's what they want, right? Because it's the only way you can get off.
Yeah, you ain't fucking kidding, man. I unfortunately, I think it's most about white women. There is a certain bar that I've set, and I'm not giving advice out to guys about I'm not divulging my way of picking up women and what to look out for and what to watch, because then other guys are going to find it. But if they have a house and they're paying a mortgage, that's one flag. I'm like, forget it. No,
Yeah,
can't
definitely.
do that. A certain level, if they have a master's degree, forget it. And unfortunately, the dog thing too. There's certain flags, there's certain benchmarks. Like, okay, doggy and is paying a mortgage and is in some type of career job. That would be really cool to get a chick like that, because you could build some type of wealth. You could borrow against her property, get a vacation home, rent out a property, have a kid. That's thinking like a dude. They don't think in those terms. Because when I was talking about that one girl with you and I saw that she had a house, she had a master's degree, she's intelligent, But then I'm thinking about it. Okay, then learning a little bit more about her. She's never been in a sustainable, long-term relationship. Bit of a red flag.
Bit of a red
Doggy
flag.
Red flag. So I realized that the standard that she's hitting for some type of level of dude that just doesn't exist. So once I started talking to her, realizing that she's talking to multiple guys, she's looking for an excuse not to go out with these men.
Yeah.
At that point.
She's acting like a guy. She's acting like a successful man.
Right. And then she said something, you need to act more like a gentleman. And I was like, oh, for little does she know who the fuck she's talking to, because I would never tell any. In fact, I told one chick, I showed her my writings and she's in love with me, but she's not very attractive, and she continues to blow up my phone, but that's neither here nor there. She goes, you need to act more like a gentleman. Oh, really? I got to act more like a gentleman. Okay, I go, is your dog near you? She goes, yeah. I go, well, listen, get a good hard look at that dog, get the fucking peanut butter and rub it on your cunt, because that's the only thing that's ever going to love you. And I just fucking, that was it. And then I dropped it at that. And then she's looking for a response, and a text message just completely ghosted her at that point.
Oh, man.
Really, let's come back to that, gentlemen. I'm going to come back to that. You want me to act more like a gentleman?
Yeah, and I would. Yeah, that's you went to like 11 on that one. I was.
Oh, but
like,
I got it. I go full blown.
Yeah.
What is it? Christopher Moltisanti on her. Oh, really? We're going to come back to that. Gentleman? He's a fucking gentleman.
Yeah, usually when I get stuff like that, I just go like, well, does that mean you're going to start acting like a lady? And they just get furious, like they get so furious.
No, I go right for the jugular, man. I remember this MILF. She was obsessed with me. She said, Nick, the words you say to women sometimes are soul crushing. I go, good. That's the way I do it.
Yeah, you got it covered, man. You're way more of a savage than I could be. I still have a hard time saying stuff like that.
Listen, it's funny. I found this one bar girl who I was her first customer. I think I took her virginity, and now she's like she thinks she's the hottest fucking thing in Cambodia. She got Instagram and she's posting thought pictures, and I shot her a message. I go, guess who it is? And then I sent her a picture of me. She goes, oh my God. She goes, I remember me. I was your first fucking customer. What are all these stupid pictures you're posting everywhere? I just start ripping into her. I go, you're still a fucking crazy lunatic with fucking hair. I used to rip on her because she had her big toe had hair on it. So you used to that fucking hair on your knuckles and shit. And I go, and you're not black like you used to be because you don't work in the fields anymore. I started just letting her fucking have it. And I was like, are you still that fucking crazy girl? She was like 18 or 19. She goes, I'm still crazier than ever, Nick. I go, good on you. That's awesome.
Oh my
God. There was these three sisters I used to hook up with, and the middle one, she was in a house fire and she burnt her hand. She lost feelings in her two fingers. She wasn't nearly as attractive as her other two sisters, and because I was hitting the other two, I always wasn't really interested in the middle one. Mm-hmm. And eventually, towards the end of my time in Cambodia, I started sleeping with her, and we got to know one another. And she goes, Nick, the women on the street, the bar girls, half of them are crazy about you, or the other half want you to fucking die and want to murder you. And she goes, why do you do that to the women? And I go, because you'll remember me. I want you to remember me. And that is a key point I try to leave with most women is, all right, you remember these words I said to you? Good. You're going to remember me for the rest of your life. And my first girlfriend, she had one little tattoo, and I always told her, don't get tattoos. As soon as I left her, first thing she did was get a tattoo. And I knew in the back of my mind that for the rest of her life, she's going to look at that tattoo and remember me because I told her not to get that fucking tattoo. And that's it. My brother, he just treats them like shit and mocks and ridicules them for having an OnlyFans. And that's how he's able to bang them. Just make them feel like piles of shit and make them feel worthless that you're just a fucking whore bag. And that's basically been his way of bagging these bitches, because he doesn't like what they do. And I forgot how he did. He like unsubscribed, and then they started messaging him. Why'd you unsubscribe? He goes, you're a fucking whore. You're disgusting. Fuck you. and that was it. Like, they just started fucking hanging around him over that.
I've had a lot. So I'm sure some of them have probably been OnlyFans girls, but yeah, I find that, yeah, you just treat them like you don't like them, and it works. Like, you just tell them, you're a dummy.
Yeah.
You don't know shit. Like, that's cute. Very funny. You just treat them like a dumb little kid. And I mean, it's not nice or good or right.
It's not the way you want to treat them. And that's the thing that that's my battle, is like, probably with that one chick, if I would have treated her more like a middle-aged man, as a, maybe I would have landed it or something like that. But, you
just treat her like your brother treats those girls. But it's so tough, because I don't want to do that. Like, I just don't want to act that way with somebody. It's exhausting. Like,
well, because you have to realize that he's a hurt person. I don't really know why my brother feels like he's a victim, but he just, projects his insecurities onto women, and that tends to work. So my brother has been very fortunate to hooking up with gorgeous women by basically projecting his own insecurities onto them, and they somewhat mirror his insecurities on some level that I don't necessarily know. And I don't even think he really knows either. My brother, I really wish my brother came on the show. He's hilarious, and I'll tell you one of my favorite moments. Probably the coolest thing my brother ever did in front of me. I came back from Cambodia, just to check up on everyone. We went up to this packed out fucking bistro bar / dance hall, whatever the fuck it is, packed out, total, just cattle. Everyone's like cattle, just moving around. There's this fucking roided meathead with this really attractive 30-something-year-old, and the guy, the roided head, who's like 6 foot something, 250 pounds, is like got his hand blocking her exit, and he's like, making sure she's not moving anywhere, and she's kind of disinterested. And my brother goes in front of me and my best friend, and there's just tons of people around. My brother goes, watch this. And he just like grabs her ass while this guy's not paying attention, right? She turns her head like, oh my God, you disgusting. And my brother's like, hey, what's up? What's going on? And she's like, hey, what's up? What's it? Right in front of this guy. And my brother turns to me and my friend. He goes, they're all fucking whores. All fucking whores. But the way my brother said it with such disappointment, like, in front of this guy who's taking you out, who's probably fucking you and shit. My brother, pinches her ass or slaps it right in front of this guy. Guy's not paying attention because he's focused. So, he's got tunnel vision focusing on her, not realizing that my brother's underneath, pinching her ass. And, that's just what happened, man.
Dude, it's just he's got that natural disdain where he thinks he's better than them. And that's really I think that's probably what it is. Like, he just, like you said, he's disappointed. He has a belief about women, and it just keeps proving itself true, and he's disgusted by it.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right. Because I mean, he's not wrong. And also, like, women, they like, they're attracted to men who are better than them, like Patrice O'Neill would say, right? So if you just like degrade, if you're just kind of like, you're shit, like, she may not even know, like, she probably has no tangible way to judge his value truly, like you were saying with his, career and the money and all these things that people obsess about with hypergamy. He's just a 5'6", little bit chubby dude who is telling her she ain't shit.
Right.
And it just blows her fucking mind. She just doesn't have any clue. And it's primal at that point. It's going like directly to her like woman brain center that like tells her like a mate with better male, right? She got no way to judge it. It's primal.
Yeah, we one of his best friend was dating this other woman who's like like a forerunner of Insta thoughts, fake tits, bombshell, and my brother was having a house party and I was trying to sleep, and then this is my brother's best friend's girlfriend, and they're with her, and they tell her, just go wake up, Nick. Just go into the room, wake up, Nick. She comes and just starts taking off her clothes, grabbing my crotch right in front of the boyfriend. And I'm like, and his name's Matt. I go, Matt, are you okay with all this? He does it all the time. You just do what the fuck you want. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. She's a dumb whore. She's gonna keep doing what she wants. And she was histrionic. So she always faint, obviously she didn't jerk me off or anything. She just loves to tease guys, Just loves to fucking tease them and shit like that. I just can't get on that level with chicks like that. I never did, never will. Call it Spurg, call it my Tom like mindset,
I mean, I don't blame you. Like, I wouldn't even really want to interact that way anyway. Like, yeah, I mean, maybe hit it once or twice or something, but like, you don't want to invite something like that into your life? Like, how do you respect a person like that? How do you continue interacting or build anything real? Like, you got to be okay with the fact that you got this like wild animal.
Now, mind you, you can't have that conversation with her either. That's the other fucked up thing.
No.
Like, you can't engage. Like, I can't build a relationship. It would be explaining water to a fish. You can't necessarily, well, why don't you like me? Like, because I'm gonna have to unpack all this information that's just gonna go over your fucking head. Yes. And that's kind of the reason why a lot of these women keep running adrift in the direction they're doing, because no one's sitting down and having this heart to heart with them, because you're explaining something on a pragmatic level when they view things more on this very liberal type of, spiritual.
Why isn't loving you enough? Can't I just love you? It's just like, no, you're a mess. Like you might love me, but you should love me. I'm better than you. You're a mess. Like, I can't keep you. Like, you're a liability. Like, you are a liability. How am I going to have a kid with you? And then like you just raise him to be just like you. You raise my daughter to be just like you. I'd fucking kill you. I mean, I understand. Like, I don't want to condone it, but I understand why these people, they snap. It's like, I couldn't have a daughter like that. I couldn't have a kid like that. How? You're not gonna feed him. You're not gonna be up. I can't leave you alone. Like,
right.
What are you gonna do?
The furniture or for,
you're gonna like get up whenever the fuck.
You might stick a fork in the toaster.
It's like, women are already like enough. They're already the oldest teenager in the house, right? Like, you don't need another literal child in your life if you're trying to like have children or something, like.
Well, that's I.M.'s point. Always says that me and I.M. Used to unpack this type of conversation that when a young girl, teenager, realizes that guys are willing to gas them up to sleep with them, they stop at that level on intellect.
Yes. Yeah, I believe so.
So that's why you have like a fat, ugly girl. She's able to do things that you want to do because guys have always thrown her to the gutter and told her she's stupid and things like that. Versus, a hot piece of tail who ages rapidly. She looks, haggard by 30 because she's been, she's rode hard and put away wet. Yeah. So, they stop at that level when they realize that a lot of guys are interested in them.
Yeah, that's 100%, man. I completely agree. I think women stop maturing once they realize that they can manipulate people with sex.
Yes.
And then they only continue maturing when they have to be responsible for a child.
Right.
So like, once you give them someone else to be responsible for, then they can become like a whole person. But before then, it's just like another kid.
Yeah, I have 6 female cousins, and the biggest train wreck of them all is now the most normal out of them all, which is hilarious because she was going to Jersey Shore. She's a slut. She was a full blown whore bag. But as soon as she became a mother, she's like the leader of the fucking pack in some weird way. It's like, how did this happen? How are you the one still married with a stable, household while your other sisters are complete fucking messes?
I think back in the day, because women got married so young and had kids like at 20, 21, these sorts of things were just sort of naturally
Well, it was stumped
abrogated.
out. It's stumped out early. Oh, she's fucking up again, get her pregnant again. And that's it. You just sit down, you're out of action for another 9 months.
Right. Well, there's something that Jordan Peterson actually said that really something that he said in passing that I thought was really fascinating and may actually be true, that we assume that our psychology is designed for ourselves, right? For being who we are. But something he mentioned was that he mentioned that women's psychology may not actually be simply for herself. Like she's going to have a child. So before a woman has a child, and if she doesn't have children, she's basically constantly searching for the child, her psychology, her soul, her mind, whatever the hell you want to call it. Her nervous system is designed to be concerned about children. And when they don't have them, they're all of those things are firing off into space and they're driving themselves crazy because there's supposed to be another living thing attached to them in some way. And when they don't have it, it just fucks them up.
That's why there's the doggies now, and it's like, look, that's why I think white people as a whole in this country are completely fucking toast.
It's fucked up, man.
It's toast.
But it's true because they're, they are the highest, the most propagandized. They've all gone to college. They all have degrees. They all work in HR. Totally infantilized. They come from they're the children and grandchildren of the wealthy stock who had it the best, and they've been propagandized the most by the boomers who told them to go to college where they get the terrible degrees. The same people who haven't handed down wisdom, haven't handed down culture or religion or any of these things. And also they have a huge guilt trip complex for whatever reason. They just want to defend all of the less fortunate people, and they don't want to, they want everything to be fair, and they want to hang out with homos and do all this stuff. I hear the same bullshit from every single woman. It's always the same shit.